So what we did is we each wrote our narrative story and then we blended them into a script that played out and braided our narratives together. It fell into 5 parts. The first act, online or on campus. These are
These
our
are our
braided
braided
voices.
stories.
Our goal is to explore the importance of women's voices.
Cross collaboration across various schools and faculty members has increased. The increasing use of technology and the socially acceptableness of meetings online also improved our ability to meet regardless of our location. I try to lead by example by wearing my mask and committing to the university policies. I feel as it's the most effective way to require an expectation when we model the desired behavior for our students.
In fall 2020, I felt more confident about how my work would go, but was still concerned about teaching biology labs completely online.
During the 2021 academic year, I taught at a small private university where online education was fairly new in many of the programs at the university. Back in March 2020, faculty were focused on delivering course content in synchronous or asynchronous learning formats without considering equity and accessibility requirements. There was another shift during the 2021 academic year. Some courses were offered on campus and or online, both synchronous and asynchronous. The students and faculty had to go through another adjustment and get familiar with the on-campus COVID protocol for their in-person class meetings and join synchronous class meetings in between their in-person meetings.
The phrase, we're all working to get back to normal, slowly morphed into the new normal.
Over the summer of 2020, my K-12 district opened up the option for students to elect to transfer to a completely online school. The process for selecting teachers to staff this online school was dependent on how many students enrolled. I knew that school would begin in August during the 3rd trimester of my 2nd pregnancy. I knew that although I would be taking a leave of absence to give birth to my daughter, I would be returning to work after several weeks with a newborn in the house. In the height of uncertainty in the pandemic, I chose to put my name down on the waiting list to staff the year-long virtual school.
Act 2, teaching challenges.
For those colleagues around me, both educator and students, the battle was raged against education and what exactly it looked like during a nationwide shutdown.
I was an involved parent, always interested in whatever new strategies the teachers had. They are the experts and they knew what they were doing.
Nothing could have prepared any of us teachers for the administrative nightmare that back-to-school virtual learning was going to be. Attendance alone took us 4 hours a day in those early days. Admin wanted us to check for any sign of interaction from each of our students across any online platform associated with school: Google, curriculum apps, email, Zoom, Remind. It was clear to me that the district was desperate for positive attendance. They were also navigating confusing and fluctuating state legislation around what constituted online participation. I knew we needed to know who was signing on and who wasn't. How would any of us support the students who weren't showing up if we didn't know who they were? And I knew some of my EL students could be among the most vulnerable students in our entire district.
I was able to find enough classes to teach, but ended up teaching 5 sections of the same lab class. I did not anticipate how monotonous it would become. Even with a fresh group of students each day, their frustration at completing labs online, my frustration with the lack of participation and interaction with students, and our collective frustration with being the first group to try the online labs that were glitchy at times. Before the pandemic began, I had a lot of experience teaching online, but the fall semester made me realize I needed to focus on building community in my classes. Teaching to a blank wall of squares over Zoom, going into break rooms and hearing the silence, let me know that my students were struggling to connect with each other and to me. Eventually, I was able to make positive connections with many of my students, but this experience reinforced the importance of building community from day one, which is a lesson I have taken to heart in future semesters.
Act 3, student challenges.
I had to do two things. One, find and present as many pathways for communication and engagement as possible, allowing students to find what worked best for them. And two, give much grace to everyone, myself included.
The college experience is nothing like I would have thought it would be. I wake up 2 minutes before class and join a video call while I'm still in pajamas, and I haven't even brushed my hair. My camera is off and I am muted. No one knows I'm anything more than a name in a box, and I don't see anyone else as anything more than a name in a box. Staying awake in an online class where no one is engaged and the teacher is lagging is nearly impossible. And unfortunately, I found myself dozing off during class on 2 separate occasions while I was trying so hard to pay attention.
I began to see more than ever before that the challenges my students were facing were huge. Each week, a student would contact me with some terrible news: the death of a family member, contracting COVID, losing their home, being robbed while living in a shelter. Not only did this make me exceptionally aware of my privilege, it pushed me to move empathy to the forefront of my teaching.
Not only did professors now have to learn how to connect and collaborate with their students through a screen, but students had to learn a new level of educational autonomy that is very difficult to achieve on such short notice. I experienced this firsthand, as most of my classes were in person simply because the format of an online class was difficult for me to focus on, and the in-person connection and communication between a professor and I is what helps me understand content better. Although online education had its wins and its losses, I found comfort in knowing that because this new way of learning was foreign and daunting to all involved, I wasn't alone in struggling to keep up.
I've had to teach myself most of the content from my classes. Act 4, The Roles of Women.
My fall semester also continued to be complicated by the other and arguably more important roles that I hold: mother, wife, and daughter. My toddler had been out of school since March 2020, and the continued struggle of providing enrichment and an interesting learning experience each day while balancing my workload and managing household tasks that were now more time-consuming. We were all incredibly isolated trying to protect our family.
Those first few weeks, workdays never ended. I woke up at 6 a.m. and began working with no commute. I worked until 11 p.m. or midnight every night. The stress probably contributed to me going into prodromal labor a month before my daughter's due date. This meant that every night after falling asleep, I would experience increasing labor contractions, only for the contractions to subside by morning.
During this time, my husband's great aunt, who was in hospice, and great grandmother, who was a caretaker for her sister, moved into our home. My children were able to experience living with their great aunt and great grandmother, and experiencing caretaking, love, sharing, and death and loss, all in less than 6 months. I now look back and think about, how did I survive those times juggling multiple responsibilities, including assisting my children through online school on Zoom, setting up my son for PE on Zoom, and virtual family nights on Zoom through the school.
I'm so sorry, my water broke. I'm having the baby.
My son's success sounds wonderful. Who wouldn't be delighted with that outcome from a struggling student to one who is excelling? This is where the sacrifice comes in. Many jobs went remote, but you can't build a hotel through Zoom. I had to step away. Becoming a journeyman iron worker was in my grasp, but I couldn't reach it. It will, just not yet. 28 years ago, when my husband was going through his apprenticeship, he never had to take any detours to take care of anything else. He had a wife for that. What I wouldn't give for a wife right now. Act 5, Impacts on Education.
There is a reason why students stress the need for a one-on-one tutoring platform, and that need was very clear. In order to learn a subject, you need someone who understands not only to explain the subject, but to recognize your needs, learn with you, and find solutions with you. It's a sort of hand-holding that isn't hand-holding at all. It is beneficial both for the educator and the learner to have this intrapersonal connection to better understand the need you are catering to. As the cameras turned on and the faces of students appeared on the screens, so did smiles. It was almost like you could read between the lips of both the tutor and the student without either of them saying a single word. It relieved, "I am so happy to see you."
Enrollment was way down. Everyone kept talking about giving students privacy in online synchronous sessions. How, though, to maintain this level or respect? Teaching involves staring at black screens, yet trying to be inclusive. There was a rising wave of confusion.
I'm both excited and scared to go back to in-person classes next semester. All in all, there's no way to know what to expect from the future, but I'm hoping for the best.
Last week I was given a fall schedule with 2 classes face-to-face on campus for the first time in 5 semesters. They put me in my favorite classroom. I wonder if my access card still works. Will we really open up?
No matter if you have perfect grades or perfect attendance, or you don't, when it comes to death and life, time stops. You never hear that next bell ring. Maybe it's been drowned out by the cries of your newborn or the flatline of a heart monitor. Whoever you are, teacher, admin, student, family member, when it comes to death and life, hierarchy and organization dissolves. If you are the one touching death or life, you are simply driftwood at sea, surrendering to be carried by the bigness of what you don't know and what you do.
These are the stories of women.
And now we conclude with our results and conclusions. In our reflections, we noted the juxtaposition of storylines that allowed us to find similarities. The importance of symbolism and imagery, as well as the disruption of third space, can't be overstated. 2 themes arose, which were the need for a positive spin, to put positive spin on things, and the difficulty of sharing stories while living with all the stress and exhaustion. Our findings indicated that the stories touched each other and colored the experience of each, while inviting the audience to become similarly affected. The difficulties and inequities of our situations continued, and the stress levels increased for women wearing multiple roles. We also, though, noted the moments of joy.
In conclusion, as academic institutions, it is necessary to recognize the unequal distribution of impact which the pandemic has had on the lives of women. To thrive as institutions of higher education, we must recognize the multiple roles that women have played and support and amplify the voices and experience of those who have typically been relegated to the sidelines in our society. The role that women have played and continue to play as cornerstones of family life and society needs to be recognized, and learning from their voices need to be accounted for. When this is done, a vision of equity can become more of a reality for all human beings and ultimately lead to the progress of society. Thank you.